In the very beginning, with a newborn, there is no schedule. Usually we're just asking that the baby is fed every 2 to 3 hours from the beginning of a feed. That's as much of a schedule as you're going to get. It's hard to say because there are going to be growth spurts at weeks 2, 3, and 6, and then 3 months and 6 months, what's going to be happening in between. You might think you're cruising along, you've got this really good pattern going, and all of a sudden a growth spurt comes up and it shifts everything in a different way. After a couple of months, you're going to find that your baby is starting to fall into their own pattern and their own schedule, and it still will probably remain that they're still being fed every 3 hours during the day, because after all, we're supposed to be eating every 3 hours during the day as adults. So yes, they will still do that, but what you will probably find is that their nights start pushing back. So if they were once staying up until midnight and we were putting them into bed then, all of a sudden they're not able to do that anymore, and we start pushing that back to 11, and then 10, 9, 8, 7. Eventually they do go 12 hours, and I promise you they do sleep 12 hours. But it's very hard to schedule a baby. Their brains are not wired for this in the very beginning. After a couple of months, once you start seeing that pattern emerging, you go with that. And if eventually you have, you're going back to work and you need closer to the time where we're starting to really feed solids, you might find more of a schedule happening then, because then they have a solid breakfast, lunch, dinner, they have snacks in between. So it really, really depends. Until then, we sort of have to just go with the every 2 to 3 hours. It might be a little bit more frequent on some days. It might be a little bit later, and that's okay. But we want to sort of adhere to around that 3-hour mark as best we can.